Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee, July 28, 2014. We have a quorum. Could we get approval of the minutes of the July 14th meeting?
Both minutes, second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will have a short presentation on the Acela Pal update building permits and for citizens access demonstration. Mark Munzer.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Mr. Stonebeck. Before you had that item come up, we wanted to show you an enhancement that we've done with the PAL system, which is Acela is the vendor of that. So what we were able to do, you had approved an optimization project to improve the system, and we've done a lot of things on the back end to improve staff's abilities to process different types of applications. So all of that is going on, but in our conversations with the vendor, we were able to implement what they call Acela Citizen Access. So what that will do is it will allow all of our residents, businesses, anybody who applies for a permit will be able to go online and get real-time information as to the status of their permit or get historical information as to the status of a permit. It goes back to 2008 to present day, and obviously will build as we move forward. So I just want to show you real briefly what it will be. So we will put an icon on the city's homepage. We'll also put an icon on the community development webpage, and this is what applicants will see. So we also want to make sure that people still were able to get a hold of us by phone and know our office hours and sometimes, but obviously a big part of this is our staff spends a lot of time fielding calls about various permits, either past or present, and our hope is that this will free up some of their time to do other tasks, and residents and businesses will have access to their permit information. So this will be the starting point, and people can click on search permit applications, and then you'll see there's a variety of different types of fields that you can search by. And if you go to record type, which is permit type, then that's all the different types of permits that we have as different types of building permits. You can also search by first name, you can search by last name, you can search by street address, either by street number or street name, and obviously you can search by city, which typically would just be Evanston, but if you were looking for a contractor possibly that is licensed in Evanston but not based in Evanston, that's some way you could look at it. So just for example...
1 second, Alderman Rainey.
Yes, Alderman.
Mark, can you sort?
Let me, if I can show you an example, it does sort.
You can sort?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is, just picking this address, 721 Foster, and you hit search. And so that will bring up every permit from 2008 to present that is associated with 721 Foster. So you go to the underline in this particular one, and that will pull up all the details. So obviously the work location, who the applicant was, who the licensed professional is, or the contractor. In this particular permit type, there were 3 different types of contractors. The owner information, one thing we did do on the owner information is we do hide personal information for owners. All we do is list the name, in this case a corporation, and the address. More details gets you to the type, so that is residential. It gets you the parcel information, which is very helpful. So it gives you the PIN number, it gives you the alderman, the block refers to the census block group, and the parcel area refers to the size of the parcel. You can also look up the fees for the project. So this was every fee associated with the work on this particular permit. You can even go to the level of detail where you can actually pull up the invoice, and it will show you all the fees that were paid by the applicant by line item, and even ultimately what the total amount was that in this particular instance they paid by check. That tells us who our staff member was, who processed it. All of that information is always available in a PDF. It also gives you inspection information. In this particular case, there's nothing scheduled because this permit is complete, but it also gives you a history of the inspections that occurred on this project. So lots of times, that's the type of information we get asked, that if there's a question as to quality of construction or anything like that, they want to know, when was it inspected, by who, what were the comments. In this particular situation, it gives you that this was, the time and date, October 30th, Henry San, who's one of our inspectors, and his contact information. And then you go to result comments, and Henry is a very thorough inspector, and that gives you all the comments that went out on this particular permit. So it's very, very helpful information. And then finally, application status, which for current permits, so permits that are in process, this will be very helpful and is our most common question. Where is my permit at? Where is it at? Is it stuck in zoning? Is it stuck in fire? Is it in architectural review? So in this case, we go here and they'll be able to see that the application was accepted on August 12th. If you jump down to zoning, zoning in this particular case was not required. This was an interior permit. We are still discussing as to if we're going to be listing actual staff members here. I know who that staff member is, but possibly listing their contact information too. Preservation review, so on and so forth. And then you drop down to the issuance, and it was marked as fees paid on August 20th. The other feature that I wanted to show you was if you go back to the home page, you can also look for all licensed contractors in the city of Evanston. So if you're whatever type of work it is that you're interested in doing, you can go to the license type. In this case, we'll go to electrical. So you can, if you think, oh, Smith's in the name, or they're on Crane or on Chicago Avenue or something like that, you could narrow it. But in this particular case, if you wanted to pull up every electrical contractor that's licensed in the city of Evanston, you have all that information right at your hands now, and it includes all of their contact information, so you can contact them directly and schedule your work. So we're very excited about this. It will go live on August 1st. We're still doing a few minor tweaks, but I'm confident by the end of the week, beginning of next week, we will be ready to go. And again, we'll do an announcement, and we'll put an icon on the webpage.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have Alderman Brathwaite and then Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that there's a preservation designation. Can you just, you were going so quickly, I didn't have a chance to.
So preservation, Alderman, is always a review on any permit that comes in.
Okay.
So if I go back to that previous example of,
I was thinking back to the resident that we met with about 6 months ago that had the issue with the window.
so that's a separate action that we're doing.
Okay.
We're doing a survey of all of that, and then we'll be able to post it and get it out to the public. It's the one that we got a partial grant from the state from. What I was referring to is as when a permit comes in, it automatically goes to Carlos, being the preservation reviewer on that, to determine if there has to be a preservation review. So that way an applicant can see either Carlos has it and is reviewing it, or it was determined as not required and moved on to the next step.
Okay.
Alderman Grover.
So we've already done a lot of staff training on using this system and inputting the information that is loading the content in and.
Correct. What I've stressed to staff is that this is now very public information, and our comments need to be, not that they weren't before, but they need to be specific. Oftentimes we would abbreviate. We would say, I sent it over to MT, is an abbreviation for a staff member.
Inspection speak.
Right.
Right.
So now we're saying being reviewed by the zoning officer, or whatever the case may be.
Interesting. And do other municipalities around here use something similar to this?
They do, and it was, ever since I've gotten here, it was important to me that we got this information out to the public. Other communities that I've worked in have had it. What I like about our system is the amount of searches and types of searches you can do. What I'm used to is basically an address and a street name, and not being able to search by all these different other criteria.
And will we have our 311 operators also fluent in this so that they could answer those questions, or will they be referring callers to the website and to use this on their own?
That has not come up. That's a good question, and we'll work with them as to how that's going to work.
Interesting. Sounds great.
Alderman Rainey.
Mark, not all contractors or people who work in your home need to be licensed. And I'm just a little concerned if we don't put a caveat on, here's a list of licensed contractors, that maybe some of our smaller handy people will be overlooked.
Okay.
And so could we just make a mention of that?
We could look at some sort of text when you go to the contractor page noting that. And noting the type of work that doesn't need a licensed contractor probably would be the best way to
Yeah. I guess, but even that is, I just want to make sure that people know they don't have to hire something simpler than, here's 50 things where you don't need a licensed contractor for. I mean, might not,
go. Okay.
just concerned that people know that they don't always have to have a licensed contractor.
That's a good point. We'll work on putting something together.
But on the safe side, Alderman Rainey, there's sometimes people hire a handyman when they really need a contractor.
Well, that's true.
So-
Yes.
But, that's true, but also, I think there are a lot of people in this town who make very good money and do very good work, who do small things like, even change light bulbs for people and, not electrical work, but work in the, like fixing this or fixing that, and I just want to make sure.
Alderman Grover?
What does it look like from inputting staff's perspective? Is it a similar kind of page where
Well, staff
They're
still
working
uses
off
their
iPads
internal.
and their- okay.
Staff still uses all of their same internal devices. So there's an internal side to PAL, and they'll continue to use that. Our inspectors are using iPads and whatnot out in the field. None of that changes. This just translates what is there now into an online searchable database.
So it could be almost instantaneous. As soon as our inspector has finished
is.
a
It's
report
real
and done a
time.
report, then it's right there and it's accessible almost immediately.
It should be immediately.
Great, that sounds great.
Are they using iPads?
They do.
Yeah,
They are.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as we move on to items for consideration, I'm going to kick it off and then pass it on to Alderman Brathwaite, and then we'll come around. The City of Evanston's payroll through July 13th, 2014 is $3,022,177.08. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Bills for through July 29th, 2014 is $3,603,906.64. Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Did everyone get a chance to look at the bills list?
No,
Any questions?
I didn't see this.
Take 1 second for Alderman Rainey to look at it.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes. Alderman Rainey?
You know, sometimes the questions and answers are just pretty routine and matter of fact, but sometimes the answer to the questions reveals some very interesting issues in our town. And I know that over the years, we've always acknowledged the Cherry Foundation for their contributions to, especially the electric vehicles, the little scooter things. And, but I don't think we did this year, did we, for this vehicle? I don't believe we did. But one of the items on the bills list for those listening is a $9,345 purchase for a three-wheel electric scooter thing. And I just think it's important to acknowledge that that was a donation from them. Also, I guess it was a raid of some kind where a home in the 1000 block of Dodge, we recovered 12 grams of cocaine and $9,781 in cash. I think that's pretty significant. Also, there's an inspection for a payment for a structural engineer on the Levy Center, where we paid some real money. And because we thought we had a serious problem there, and a whole series of observations made by our staff, and as it turns out, the structural inspection showed that it wasn't as serious as it looked, which is very good news. And also, a major charge, $19,000, management consulting on the Crown study. I'd really like to know more about that. We're going to interview architects to develop new renderings, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like more information on that. Where are we? I know that some members of the council are on a committee.
I was going to say, isn't there a subcommittee working on that?
I don't know what they're doing.
Alderman Burrs, are you on that? Can you give?
Yes, we're hoping to bring something to the council to give an update this fall.
This fall? Okay.
Okay.
Well, there's only one meeting in August, so.
Right.
August is still summer.
I know, that's what I'm saying, so there's only one meeting, so when fall, I assume fall.
I'm like, give me another month of summer, please.
Yeah, I will.
Alderman Rainey?
And also, we bought a real live vehicle from an Evanston dealership, our only dealership, Auto Barn. I think we bought a Nissan, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's really good news.
Before. I think that on the vehicle donated by the Cherry Foundation, I remember last year, I think it was, they purchased a three-wheeler or something, and at the police, when the chaplains do the ceremony, they usually mention it there and had it, but I don't remember the demonstration this year. Maybe you didn't have it at that time.
No, Madam Chair and members of the committee. The Cherry Foundation, we've been working with them for several years now. In fact, I was present when I met with Mr. Cherry a couple of years ago, and we actually purchased 2 of those electric vehicles.
Right.
And they are used at special events. Mr. Cherry even was present to see the one 4-wheel drive vehicle that we mostly use for beach access now. So these are used for events, for Northwestern University, for Main Street Fair. So they've worked out quite well for us. I think when we actually introduced those and started using them at Northwestern University and saw that first T3 model that we used, they actually went out and purchased 2 of their own because they were so impressed on how we used them and how we were able to get through crowds, through all the tailgating. You can cover more area with those, and they last up to a good 8 hours. So I think we're on a real trend with these. Our problem-solving team use them mostly. Chaplains, we share those vehicles with whoever we can. So I think they've been very beneficial, and I do applaud the Cherry Foundation for listening to us and fulfilling those needs that we request every year.
Right. Alderman Grover?
Do you know, Deputy Chief Jamrez, if we bought it with the full light and siren package? I'm looking at the website.
I believe they do have lights. They have LED lights. They do have a siren. They do have the horn.
Yeah.
The last, actually, the last two models that we bought, this model seems to be a little more durable than the original T3 that we purchased. We actually saw this at a local demonstration a couple of years ago, and this company came out and did a demonstration for us, and Mr. Cherry was there to look at all those vehicles, and he liked this model, these two models, actually more than he did the original T3 that we bought. So, and I do think that these are very, very durable vehicles.
According to the website, it is capable of silent pursuits up to 29 miles an hour, top speed, and can hop an 8-inch curb to get on the sidewalk. If the officer jumps off this vehicle, there's an automatic parking brake that stops it in its tracks.
Yes, it's very stable.
Pretty cool.
It does stop, so it's
Yeah.
a pretty safe vehicle
Great.
for our operations.
Jane, it sounds like you want one.
Yeah. Well, we're all very grateful to the Cherry Foundation. I'm sure that the mayor will acknowledge that at another time. But I do remember that at the chaplains, when they do the police officers every year, I remember the last year that they had, because they had the demonstration there, and Mr. Cherry was there, although he was there this year because I stood beside him, but I just don't remember the demonstration this year. So you may not have had it then. Okay, thank you. Alderman Breathwaite, A3.1.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move item A 3.1, approval of renewal of the annual sole source Acela. Did I pronounce that correct? Acela? Maintenance and support agreement.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Alderman Burrs, A3.2.
I ask your approval of participation in the joint contract with the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative for pavement marking services for the not-to-exceed amount of $50,000. Participation will allow the City of Evanston to apply thermoplastic marking materials throughout the city in support of the pedestrian safety program.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Rainey?
Yes, Madam Chair. This item is A3. It's approval of an agreement with Dom Mechanical Industries for chlorine feed system improvements at the Water Department. It's a budget allocation of $200,000, and additional funds will be made up because we're deferring the masonry evaluation and tuck pointing project. So I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Alderman Rainey, you have a question?
Yes. This reminds me to mention the fabulous Saturday morning event at the Water Department celebrating its 100th anniversary. It was excellent, and the staff was all there directing everybody and pointing out who does what and all the vehicles, and it was really, really marvelous. Really great.
Great. Fantastic.
Very well attended.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alderman Grover.
Madam Chair, I move approval of a contract for armored car services with Dunbar Armored Incorporated in the amount of $81,000, the estimated first-year amount, with funding to come from both our general fund and the parking fund. This brings a reduced cost to us for this contract.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. A4, approval of change order number 1 for large diameter sewer rehab. Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to figure. A3.5, I'm sorry, I'm moving ahead. Approval of the contract for towing and other related services with North Shore Towing. The staff recommends that the city authorize the city manager to execute a contract extension for towing and other related services for North Shore Towing. The estimated annual expenditure is $44,982,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? And Alderman Rainey?
You want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
I don't have the packet information in front of me because I'm not there yet on my computer, but I'm looking. The date that our first contract with them was 19 what? 80 something? What was it?
Trying to pull it up.
Good evening,
Mr. Voss, do you have that information for us ready?
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Ricky Voss, Administrative Services. The first contract, and take back a little bit, I want to believe was in the first year of when you were on the council, was either 1982 or 1983.
Well, but it says
the
it was
first year.
earlier than that, and I remember working on that with Evie Radin, and we were very proud to get that contract going. But the packet says an earlier date, and I thought, gee, I didn't think so.
I want
I-
to say
I
it was
think it-
1982 or 1983,
Well,
right in that range.
it'd
But Bob,
be 83
Mr.
or
Cole's here,
later.
but
Yeah,
he could probably answer that better
yeah,
than I
I'm
could.
sure you could, yeah. Anyway, they've been with us for so long, and we really haven't had problems with this contract.
No, we have not.
And I also remember being involved in a discussion, fellow council members, about installing the boot, initiating the boot. And the police department said it would never work. And we really wanted it to work. And as it turned out, here's a family secret. My daughter, when she turned 16, had more parking tickets than any other individual in the city of Evanston. And became one of the first people eligible for the boot. I mean, she had hundreds of tickets, and all you needed was 10. So. Anyway, she lost her car that day. Yeah. So anyway, but they've really been, I think, a really exemplary vendor, or contractor, I guess.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Voss. My question is only about North Shore's fee schedule. We don't have problems with the contract. A lot of our residents, though, who do get towed have problems with the amount of the fee schedule. And although it's attached to the proposed contract with them, we do not set their fees, and we do not take any cut of the fees that they charge for their towing services. Am I right?
correct.
I think it's always important to remind people that this is not a revenue generator for us, that in the event of a towing, it's the parking ticket that produces revenue for the city for the parking violation. But the towing fees, that's just attached to this contract, are North Shore's fees and not the city's.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A4, Alderman Brathwaite.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to approve item A4, approval of change order one for large diameter sewer rehabilitation at Central Park in Maine. Staff is recommending that the City Council authorize the city manager to execute this change order. The agreement is with Kenny Construction Company, and I think the important thing to note that it's actually a reduction of $60,542.39.
It's been moved in second. We should also note that extends the contract
They
for
also
30
want to
days as well.
extend it another 30 days, yeah. I
Right.
thought that was pretty cool.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alderman Burris.
A5, I ask your approval of Resolution 56-R-14, authorizing the city manager to negotiate a contract for the purchase of real property located at 717 Howard in the 8th Ward.
Second. I was going to switch with you, but
It's been moved in second. Are there any comments? Alderman Rainey, you want to?
I want to just say a few words about this. Over the years, this building has been a very difficult property to have in your ward, in my ward. And the reason being is the person who owned the building found it necessary to store tons and literally tons and tons, maybe 10, 12 huge heavy equipment vehicles that had rusted beyond repair or drivability of any kind, tow trucks, snow plows. Well, it became a junkyard. Facing the alley on Howard Street are beautiful apartment buildings and condos that people have worked very hard to maintain, and, you know, they did fancy stuff on their back porches, and that's what they had to look at. And over the years, we went to court over and over. Maybe this building was in court as many times as any other property in Evanston. And surprisingly, our staff had wonderful reports, but surprisingly, for some reason, we were never successful in getting fines, and if we did get a fine, I doubt that we ever collected a nickel. And this property cost our city thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And finally, unfortunately for the owner of the building, it went into foreclosure, and a mortgage company owned it. And it's been a very difficult purchase, and our staff, Michelle Mason Cup, just brilliant effort. It wasn't, you know, you would think when the city comes with cash to pay more than, you know, you would think that it would be a smooth transaction, but it wasn't. And some very interesting real estate gymnastics were performed here, and that's putting it mildly. So I'm really grateful for Johanna and Michelle, and especially Wally Bobkowitz, who has supported the purchase of this building all along, because it really completes a vision that we have for the two properties. We now have two properties next to each other. So that's a big plus, and I'm really grateful. And I am grateful to the council's support all along. Really, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. So, anyway.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Alderman Grover?
I keep getting scared.
I know, it's me. No,
But
it's,
I'm very quiet about it. All right, next item is ordinance 65014. It's an alley paving special assessment, number 1512, and it is the alley north of Thayer, east of Marcy, and it will be done, of course, through the special assessment process. Funding of $145,072.46 from the special assessment fund, and the neighbors adjoining the property is $145 and, wait, how much is that? $145.72, $72.46 will be assumed by the adjacent property owners. I'm moving introduction, and it's my understanding suspension of the rules is requested, so could we also have a vote on suspension of the rules, so when it's on the consent agenda, we can just move forward?
absolutely.
Are there any people here about this?
I don't, so they didn't sign up
Okay,
to
all right.
speak, so I'm assuming not, Fat is here, but who can give us additional information if we need it.
Okay.
It's been moved in second for ordinance 65-0-14, as well as suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now, Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move our approval of and discussion of ordinance 66014, which is a regulation on disposable plastic shopping bags and related issues. This comes back to us from the City Council's brief deliberation at the July 14th meeting.
Second.
It's been moved in second. We have one speaker, Ms. O'Neill.
I'm Rosemary O'Neill. I live at 2044 Sheridan Road. I must say you're really zipping along tonight, so I'll try to make this brief. I thank you for being here. I'm speaking, voicing my opinion, but also my neighbor, Jean Lindwald, is out of the country, and she is far more articulate and better informed than I am. But I guess if you're going to bring this subject up, I thought it was sort of buried a couple of years ago. If you're going to resurrect it, I guess we are going to have to, rev ourselves up. And once again, I will repeat here, regardless of age, sex, or nationality, people are slobs, and you're going to have them no matter what you do about the plastic bags. There'll be cigarette butts or paper floating around. I thank you the last time for your time and talent which you give to the city, and I truly mean that, and I shall repeat it now. Why don't you just drop this subject and give yourself more time? I do think that it's coming up at a time when people are on vacation and they're away, they don't know what's going on. I don't know anybody, I don't know everybody, but lots of my friends in Evanston, they don't understand this. They really don't. I think, there's talk about getting a cotton bag or something like that, and then you're just supposed to wash it and get the germs out of it. Well, then you're polluting other things that, it does not seem very logical to me or common sense. Also, the matter was brought up that Chicago is doing it. Well, my dears, Chicago is another matter, and just because they're doing it, culturally, opera, music, symphony, I might follow on that, but some of these other things, they can go their own way. I don't think the plastic bag subject is really on the taxpayers' minds, and I think if you could just give it a rest for a while and leave everyone alone, it would be greatly appreciated, and you can have a little more time for yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any lights. Alderman Rainey, and then Alderman Brathwaite.
Well, I guess it's important that people explain their position, if anybody cares. I have decided to support this. Going into this, I was not going to. But the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. And the reason it makes sense in terms of Chicago did it, the more who do it, the more effect it's going to have. So Chicago, Evanston, it's sort of like the ordinances and statutes regarding no smoking. It doesn't matter if one does it, but when everybody does it, then it starts to make a difference. And the reason I'm comfortable supporting it, I've reasoned this through in my head, is because it's not going to affect the very small private business, the neighborhood business. However, I think that our staff would do well, and we would do well, and shoppers would do well to encourage small stores, non-chain stores, non-national stores, franchises, to encourage their customers to bring their own bag with them. Everybody I know, Alderman Burris, myself, we see everybody in the whole world in Aldi's all the time, in Sam's Club. You don't get a bag there. You don't get a box there. You have to bring your own. And, people who plan ahead have their bags and their boxes. People who don't, like me, who forgets every now and then, go to their car carrying their stuff. It's a simple thing. So it's going to affect Kroger's, it's going to affect Jewel, the big guys, but it's not going to affect the smaller ones. And the reason Aldi does not provide bags or boxes is because it keeps the prices down. So on the one hand, you're going to have to buy a cloth bag. On the other hand, you're going to save money maybe, or at least not suffer increases in costs because they're not going to be buying the plastic bags. We're not taxing anybody. We're not charging anybody extra for a bag. We're just saying, for the big guys, no plastic bags. That's all we're saying. You can go to Aldi's, and they do have plastic bags for sale, but they are shopping bags that are very convenient, that can be taken any place, that last forever. And if you're concerned about germs, every time you touch your computer or a doorknob, you got germs. So don't worry about a cloth bag. It's not going to kill you. it just makes sense. It is so not inconvenient when you go to Aldi's. It is not inconvenient at all. And if the other places would take note, then maybe even the smaller stores would do it. And I have been surprised by some of the socially conscious small stores who fight this. I think it's very interesting. Speaking of the water department this weekend, they told us about when they're cleaning out the catch basins and things, the plastic bags that are trapped in there that just cause all sorts of problems. So I just think it has a broad spectrum of effect if we pass this, and the more who do, the better off everybody will be. Target pays you to bring your own bag. They pay you a dime or 15 cents or whatever per bag. Trader Joe gives you something. I don't know what. I don't shop there, but so it just makes sense to me. So that's why I'm supporting it.
Okay. Alderman Brathwaite?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I definitely want to acknowledge and applaud Alderman Burris for a commitment to this issue. I know that you've worked really hard on it, and we've pushed our staff to come up with good recommendations that we hope will be accepted on council. Unfortunately, I do have some concerns, and my concerns are not my own. They come directly from two sources. One is a large store that Alderman Rainey mentioned. One of them, they're concerned how this will have an impact on their business, so I'll share that. And then my other concern, of course, is for the large grocer that hopefully will come into the Evanston Plaza. Unfortunately, the owner's out of the country right now, so I haven't had an opportunity to have a direct conversation with him with the way that's been currently rewritten. So I'm not going to beat this thing up just because, again, I understand the need and the change in times, but I do have to represent the thought of those two grocers that are in my ward.
Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been thinking about and working on this for a long time, and I think it's important for everyone to understand that we are not telling anybody what kind of bags they can bring to stores or what kind of bags they can use. They can bring paper, they can bring plastic. The ordinance here is scheduled to take effect really a year from now. And so residents who are really attached to the free plastic bags, and that's what we're talking about, is free plastic bags. But as Alderman Rainey suggested, maybe they're not quite free to us. The cost of them is reflected in the cost of the goods we purchase. But folks will have a year to stockpile. If the plastic bags are really important, then they'll have a year to build up a supply of plastic bags if they want to store them instead of letting the stores store the plastic bags. But again, we're not telling shoppers what kind of bags to use. This doesn't take away any shopping bag option. It just, I think, lets the larger retailers and specific retailers off the hook from having to purchase and ship and inventory and supply and distribute these so-called free plastic bags to shoppers. And that Chicago's already gone down this road makes our enforcement easier because those same large retailers will already be ahead in adjusting to what's happening in Chicago. They will have already made adjustments, and their customers will have already made that adjustment. And it won't be that hard, I don't think. I don't think it'll be quite the burden on those retailers that we think it is, and maybe they won't see it as so bad if they do, because there's a significant cost savings to them for not having to purchase bags for us. So for me, it's that the ordinance comes with recommendations on educational efforts, that we can work with the retailers, that we will do some programming in the community to make it easier for folks to make this adjustment. And frankly, anybody over the age of, 40 has lived in this world without free plastic bags. And think of it as just going back to the way it was before they arrived on the scene. We somehow managed to shop and haul our groceries and haul our purchases without free plastic bags, and I don't think that adjustment will be that difficult. It's taken me, I will admit, a couple years to remember to bring my reusable bags and keep them with me, but it's just a matter of changing behavior. And I punish myself every time I forget by not bagging things, and carrying out individual items is my own special punishment. So I'm urging us all to vote in favor.
Well, I'm really on the fence with it. I certainly want to protect the environment like everyone else does, and I understand. I'm just really concerned about the little guy, and as long as I'm assured that this is not going to, in a year from now, we'll be right back with this for the little guys. And I got lots of calls. I had a discussion with Alma Rainey today, and I was telling her, my residents are very up in the air about it, and wanting to make sure. I don't have any big boxes in my ward, but I do have a lot of little stores, corner stores, the beauty supply store, where they do give out those bags, and people are real concerned about it. And as long as I'm assured that this is not going to affect them, then I can certainly support it. But more than anything, I want us to continue on the path of educating people, because I think that's where we have to go. And I'm going to say again, we in Evanston need to develop a bag that we can give to people. I just really feel that we need to do that. We can put some logo on it or what have you, but I think that maybe that would be a first step in part of our education. Alderman Rainey?
Well, you're right. We did have a great conversation today, and I won't support banning plastic bags among the smaller businesses. But I do support, like you said, educating them as to the cost of their plastic bags. The fact is, cloth bags can be used as fabulous advertising. So it might behoove some of them to really think about that, and maybe we can even use our Great Merchant Grant for the various business districts to use bags for those areas, as opposed to, another website, which you can do for free if you have two brain cells rubbing together, or at least a Facebook page. You know what I mean. I mean, you don't need to spend $3,000 on a website these days. However, I just think it's just so important that we not include the smaller people, and we're not, and I don't believe we're going to. But one of the things one of my greenest constituents told me was, please stop giving us all these, sorry, Water Department, all these cups for water, all these plastic cups. Start handing out cloth bags. That's what we really need, not any more drinking cups. So I'm going to encourage the city to rethink the tchotchkes, and start doing, because everybody can use a cloth bag. Everybody.
I agree.
So that's what I'm going to encourage.
Okay, I see no more lights. It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So it's 4-1. Okay. We have one item for discussion, the taxi cab matter.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee grant for our Corporation Council. We're bringing this item to you for a discussion with respect to the issue of cab regulation and Uber and Lyft operations and other similar rideshare operations in the city of Evanston. We have taken a look at this issue, and the thing that has been of note at this point is there is currently legislation in Springfield that's on Governor Quinn's desk that specifically speaks to regulation of the rideshare and for-hire industry. And the thing that jumps out at me, as it does with a lot of legislation in Springfield, is that it has a very strong home rule preemption component to it. Simply put, if the governor does sign that legislation into law, and it's not clear whether he will or not, then those state laws would trump any sort of local regulation. So that is an important point right now as we stand here at July 28th. the governor, under the Illinois Constitution, has until, I believe, late August, early September to either sign or veto this legislation. So simply put, before the law department can offer any kind of guidance or frame the public policy issue, I think it's best to let the matter in Springfield unspool itself, because anything that we may do could be subject to home rule preemption.
Okay. I have two lights, Alderman Grove and then Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Mr. Farr. I didn't understand the proposed legislation trumps, it has, you said, a strong home rule component to it. Does that preemption?
Yes.
Or does it give us room to maneuver within the state legislation?
So the way the legislation is currently framed, it would preempt local regulation.
So whether or not we took action and did something sooner rather than later, it would be irrelevant once there's state legislation?
We would get caught in the switches. That is correct. The state legislation would trump us.
So if it's late fall, that the governor may end up signing something, you said sooner?
Well, I think under the Illinois Constitution, he has, I believe, until late August, early September to sign it or to send it back with a veto. I haven't calculated the effective date for which he has to take action, but it's sometime within that time frame. Certainly by, I think, September 8th. First council meeting in September, we may have more clarity on the subject if he takes action on it at that point.
Could you send us whatever the legislation is? Is there, I can't remember if it already bounced into our email box and I missed it or I didn't pay attention, but is there?
It's House Bill 4075. I can pull it off the General Assembly website and email it.
I can find it.
Or you can, yeah.
I can find it.
It's on the Illinois General Assembly website.
Thank you.
Okay. No other lights? No other questions? Go ahead, Alderman Rainey. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Go ahead.
I don't really care what legislation it is. If Springfield is again trying to undermine our rights through home rule, we need to fight it and fight it hard. And I'm certain the mayor's group and the Northwest Municipal, I'm sure everybody is fighting it, are they not?
It's
Any preemption, I don't care if it's my very favorite legislation in the whole world. Springfield cannot continue to preempt home rule.
I can't express one.
No, well, you know what? It undermines your ability to guide us in public policy. It does. And it undermines the city's rights and responsibilities. Springfield doesn't always know what we need here. And so that's my concern.
Well, if I may amplify upon that point, the counterposing approach is really embodied by the City of Chicago ordinance, which was passed, I believe, in May. So there's really two different streams of thought on this, one on the legislation that's sitting on Governor Quinn's desk and one that's embodied in the City of Chicago ordinance. I guess for purposes of framing the discussion at this point in time, based upon the City of Chicago regulations, the law department would be prepared to bring those regulations to the City Council for its consideration, as opposed to the state of Illinois. But that rests upon the premise that Governor Quinn vetoes the Illinois legislation, the state bill. I don't know what he's going to do.
Okay.
Nobody does.
Well, I don't think that this council, and I'm really not speaking to you on this, I don't think, and to my colleagues here, I don't think we have, as a committee or as a council, discussed this to the point where we know what legislation or regulations or anything, or even if we want to place any. I don't think we've gotten to that point yet, right? I mean, have you discussed? No.
Well, no, I don't think that's why I asked. I kept asking about it in terms of just really not understanding. We keep getting the concerns from some of the taxi drivers in terms of what is happening and how the business has been taken, so that we need to understand what we're doing about it or what we're going to do about it. So no, we've not had the discussion. That was the purpose of putting it on the agenda.
Well, I think some of the interesting articles and editorials around the country have really been very enlightening, and I forwarded one to everybody, several, but one in particular, that, times have changed. Times have really changed in the technology era. things have really changed. And I really think there's an opportunity for us to have some very good conversations, especially as it has to do with why did this concept come forward? Why? Not everybody's happy with the way cab drivers conduct themselves or the cabs are maintained, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure that there are some problems with, what is it called, Lyft and Uber. But we have to have the conversation, I think, and not. So, anyway.
Well, at the appropriate time, we will return to council and assist in framing that discussion.
Well, as member of the Administration and Public Works Committee, I would like to make a reference to the Administration and Public Works Committee and to the mayor that I think to the Rules Committee, that we instruct the mayor to go to Springfield or to talk to the governor, et cetera, and to our legislators, that we are really distressed that another attempt at undermining home rule is taking place on this legislation. And I think every piece of legislation that undermines home rule should be attacked, even if we like the legislation. Doesn't matter.
Is there a second on that?
Doesn't need to be. I'm making reference to
Oh, you don't need a
standing
referendum?
committees.
Okay, we don't need a second on that.
But I'll
Okay.
second it.
I know, but they didn't sign up, but I will, when we finish the discussion, I see their hands. Anything else for Director Farrar?
Thank you.
Okay, I see your hands. We did have a sign-up sheet. I'm going to let you speak for a couple of minutes, but you'll have to sign up here. Okay, come on. You want to come up and sign up as well? You want to speak? You need to sign. And that's okay. I'll take care of that. Speaking on the taxi matter. Okay, go ahead. Right there to the mic. Thank you.
I actually have a question because we tried to ask the Council of Evanston the questions before. It was maybe 6 months ago, and we never got an answer. And meanwhile, those ride-sharing companies, they would just continue operating without any rules and regulation, without any inspections, without anything that the city of Evanston had in place. So meanwhile, we're losing our business, we're losing our drivers because the ride-sharing companies don't have any rules that they go by. So my question is, if it's going to take another 2 months or 1 month, or governor going to veto it and the rules for ride-sharing companies not going to go through, meanwhile, what we should do? We should eliminate all our inspection, all our driver training and everything. Should we do the same thing? Because we have the same technology. It's not a matter of technology that ride-sharing companies has. We have app, we have everything. And we're just sitting by and losing our business, our share of the customer base and everything else. I mean, if we can do the same thing what they do, then just tell us. I mean, can it be one guy has to be with the hands tied behind his back and another one can do whatever they want?
Well, I think it's a fair question, and that's why we want to discuss it, because I understand that the cabs are following the rules and doing what we have set up
Whatever
as
you
the
want.
guidelines, and now the ride shares don't do that. So that's why we're going to have the discussion.
And my question is to City Council that why they didn't return our calls. We tried to understand, we tried to ask this question a long time ago and we didn't get any answers. And why the City of Evanston has to follow whatever City of Chicago does. I mean, City of Chicago has interest in the Uber and Lyft. I assume you guys don't, so...
Well, it has to come up on our docket before we discuss it.
I understand, but
so it's coming to the council. We have no idea when you put it into the pipeline, but...
They never answered our phone calls, so that's...
Okay, well, no.
Okay, but our lawyer did and did.
Don't accuse everybody.
Well, I'm not accusing, I'm just saying that the fact that our lawyer put the calls and they never got answer.
Well, we will make note of that, and we'll discuss that with the city manager.
Okay.
Okay?
So meanwhile, we continue doing business as,
I would, if I were you and you hold a license, I would continue to do business as you know that is the correct way to do business. I don't think that we can make exceptions because we do have rules. This is new to everyone. At least I didn't realize how it was affecting Evanston businesses until I think, 2 months ago you guys came here? And that was my first knowledge of realizing how it was affecting the business. So, and that's just personal for me. So I think that we've been trying ever since to try to find out and get it. It's on our docket now. So it's on our radar.
meanwhile, we're about 20 or 30% of our fleet is just,
And I hear you, and I sympathize with that, but I would never tell you to break the rules.
okay.
Okay. Alderman Grover, you want to say something to him?
I was just, thanks to Alderman Rainey's reference, we will be taking this up. The learning curve for us is going to be a little steep while we understand both the rideshare businesses and regulation of them and the traditional taxi cab business better. But we will be taking it up, but we don't turn on a dime, and it's hard for us to do these things, immediately. But we
Okay.
are very interested in
I
talking about it.
appreciate,
Yeah,
I appreciate
certainly.
you guys' interest in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
Hi, my name is Eli Brott, and I own a fleet of North Shore cabs. And the problem is that we're not playing in a level field. Uber's trying to make it sound like they're playing a level field, but our cabs cost them between $15,000 and $20,000 a year to run a car. Uber X cars don't pay a penny for insurance, licensing, city sticker, or maintenance, safety inspection, everything. So you're letting people in Evanston go in cars that have no insurance on them. Because the insurance industry already said that they're not going to cover anybody who's in a commercial vehicle who don't have commercial insurance. And then Uber told the governor if he doesn't sign this bill that's coming up to him, they'll put 500 new people to work in Chicago. All they're doing is they're taking people from the taxi cabs and put them in the Uber car. Because in Evanston, there's about a dozen cars that are Uber X cars, and all of ours are X drivers. They figure, why should I pay this gentleman money to run a cab when I can go in my own car and I don't pay a penny? So they charge half the money that we do to go to the airport because they have no expenses at all, not one penny. And that's what the problem. Our guys are not making no money because these guys are taking all the business away from them. And if any day of the week you can look on your phone, there's at least a dozen of these cars in Evanston every day. And Evanston, the older people like me, I don't use that stuff, but the younger people in Evanston, that's all they use is their cell phone. And they don't care if they got insurance or not. They'll get anything to get them there cheaper. Thank you very much.
Alderman Rainey has something to say before you.
I mean, technology isn't the only thing that differentiates,
Right.
nor is insurance. Every time I've ever been in a traditional cab, every time, if the driver speaks English fluently, I am told how horrible it is to work for a cab company that takes $75 a day out of his pocket before he drives the first mile, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, ma'am.
The rest of the cab ride is usually complaints about this, about the city of
Yes, ma'am.
Evanston, about the roads, about the price of gas. It just
ma'am.
gets old after a while. So some of your, it might be helpful for you to begin doing not the inspection training and cab training like the city does, but maybe some customer service training, and maybe your explanation about insurance and that will all be worthwhile, because people will have a more pleasant experience riding in a North Shore cab.
You're right. One more thing I forgot.
That's just a little tidbit
You're
from a
right.
user of Uber. I am
Right.
an Uber X user.
Evanston has their own rules, their own regulations for cabs. How come they don't use those regulations to stop these cabs from working in Evanston?
Is there not-
Evanston has regulation. You have to have insurance, you have to have city sticker, you have to have a city license, you have to be inspected, by the state every 6 months. And why doesn't Evanston use those regulations to keep them out of Evanston?
Why
I
don't
talked to
you-
the police department. They said they can't do anything until the council tells them. I talked to Steve O'Sullivan. He said the same thing. He can't do anything till the city council tells him to do it.
And we've just scheduled a meeting to discuss this. So when we do, then it'll be the time for us to have the debate, okay? So.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?